My sister-in-law is demanding so much money from me and my family. She says that we're not doing enough to help them. But guys, I'm doing everything I possibly can. I know my brother is sick, but I'm doing everything I can to help him. Here is what my sister-in-law has to say about it, though.
Hey, this is OP. I'm 40 years of age. I'm just here to rant about how things are transpiring, and my life has been made into a total hell by my sister-in-law. Before I talk about it, let me give you a little context here. I'm the second child of my parents, and I'm happily married and have a beautiful daughter. My husband Anthony is always supportive of me, and if not for him, I would not have been the successful businesswoman I am today. Now, I don't need to work every day of the week to provide for myself and my family, which to many is a luxury. I actively donate to the less privileged because I'm sure that I was blessed to do so. There was a time when things were really bad for my husband, and whenever we looked back at it, he would laugh and call me the biggest and best investment he's ever made. Things are more than okay now, which is amazing because my daughter is not the only person I'm taking care of. My oldest brother, the first child, is currently unemployed. Things weren't always that way for him. He was an accountant before he was let go of his company, and then he spiraled due to the pain of losing his job. The illness came, and after a few family meetings, we agreed to contribute money monthly just to take care of him, his wife, and his 2 children. Now, my sister-in-law did not go to college, and when she got married to my husband, she was assured that she would never have to work or struggle, according to her. So, after my brother got ill, she found it hard to get a job, not necessarily because nobody would hire her per se, but more because she could not fathom the idea. Trying to convince somebody as stubborn as she is annoying, but in the end, my siblings and I gave up. Most of us were well off, and after all, it was not a problem in the beginning. That was until the complaint started to begin. As I said earlier, my brother is sick, and so a part of the bills include medication and sometimes hospital bills when my sister-in-law can't handle the situation. Cynthia was complaining that the money we contributed was barely enough, and after another family meeting because of my brother's family, we agreed to increase the amount of money that we gave them monthly. After all, Cynthia had a sick husband and 2 children who attended the same private school as my daughter. And there was the feeding, rent, clothing, and other bills to take care of. Eventually, the monthly sum was just not enough anymore, and Cynthia would complain again and again. And one time I asked what the problem was. I owned clothing stores, so I would just send clothing to the children to wear every month. My younger sister, Abigail, made sure to help out with one of my niece's extracurriculars, which consumed amount of money. I was certain that the money we gave her was more than enough to take care of the family's other needs. On the other hand, Cynthia said that my siblings and I were treating her family like a random charity case. It was upsetting, and no matter how hard we tried to convince her otherwise, she believed that nonsense. I learned to ignore her and her complaint till the day of my brother's party. Well, that was 3 weeks ago, and I knew then that my sister-in-law hated me and my siblings because she thought that we didn't do enough. My youngest brother, Alan, had celebrated his 1-year anniversary with his wife by throwing a party, and of course the entire family was invited. It was all fun, and it was nice to see my brother and his wife happy till I saw my younger sister talking to my sister-in-law. They seemed to be in a heated argument, but when I went closer, I could see that Cynthia was drunk. Abigail was trying to stop her from drinking anything more, but Cynthia was being very stubborn. When I intervened, I'd made things worse because Cynthia created a scene, talking about how we did not help her no matter how much she begged for money. She had even gone as far as to cry and ask the guests to help her because of my brother's condition. Her little display attracted a few people, and then she mentioned the party being thrown when my brother was hospitalized. Well, long story short, that singular act had cut the party short. I remember just hearing some guests mention how unfair we were to our sister-in-law, and as they left, I could not even sleep that night. If not for my husband, I'd have probably stayed awake all night. He spoke to me and just assured me over and over that things would be fine. as he would try speaking to Cynthia himself. He also suggested speaking to my brother using our marriage as an example. My husband could easily influence my actions, and he hoped that the same would happen to my brother and Cynthia. I can't say the plan worked because I'm yet to see results. I did visit my brother in the hospital and spoke about Cynthia, telling him that she was being unfair to us by creating scenes and accusing us of not doing the best that we could, which was a lie. He apologized on her behalf and promised to talk to her. When I asked about my husband's encounter with Cynthia, he told me that he talked to her and tried to explain how things really were to her. It was only later that I found out that Cynthia had insulted my husband when he tried to speak to her. When he confessed to me, he told me that Cynthia was a difficult person to deal with and that he kept his calm only because of me, and I could only imagine what he had to tolerate to pass a message across to that woman. Thankfully, nothing out of the ordinary has happened. I'm not sure if my brother had spoken to Cynthia or if my husband's visit had actually paid off. I just hope things remain this way. Update number 1. Hey guys, so I should have known that Cynthia would do something else to irritate both me and my siblings. I had to visit her myself to try speaking sense into her, but even that was futile and embarrassed for me. Before my visit, though, my brother got sick again, and he's fine now, but Cynthia had to stay with him at some point in the hospital, and as I was the one who lived closest to them, I volunteered to take care of my nieces. I did not get a thank you, and I wasn't really expecting anything like that from somebody like Cynthia anyways, but there was a calm when she brought her children over, talking to them and hugging them before leaving the hospital. It was nice, and as I watched the scene, I thought that Cynthia was bitter because life made her that way. She didn't plan to get married to somebody who would lose his job and have to be hospitalized at the most random of times. It was a pity, and at the moment I had promised to tolerate her more, which was why I had paid her a visit, something I would normally not do. Cynthia's children, my nieces, reminded me of their mother during their 2-day stay in my home. They never volunteered to help out with any chores and would rather stay in the guest room by themselves. I once overheard one of them complain about my cooking, and it was so upsetting that I read through various recipes on that particular dish and even contemplated asking her why she had not liked the dish. Then there was the way my daughter avoided them like they were a plague. I didn't notice at first because they had not stepped out of the room till I called them out for dinner. But the second day, I had asked Nora to join her cousin, who was doing the laundry, and she refused. Initially, I thought that she was shy, but when she begged me to not make her join Cynthia's girls, I became pretty perplexed. I mean, of course I told her she didn't have to, but it was on my mind for some time. Nora didn't tell me anything, and I had to ask the girls, who had told me that they weren't sure why either. I soon forgot about the episode when my brother returned home. We all paid him a visit, and while he looked visibly weak, it was better than the other times that he had returned from the hospital. I was hopeful, because I was tired of being worried and because the doctors had told us that he was getting better, and that the surgery performed on him was a major one that was going to yield positive results. Even Cynthia, who was normally problematic, was docile enough for some time. Whenever I visited, she caused no problems, which was out of the norm for her. Almost 2 weeks after my brother had returned home, Alan had called complaining about Cynthia, and I was surprised because Cynthia was not misbehaving. He told me that Cynthia was harassing him, asking for money over the phone and via text message, and after the anniversary celebration, Alan was a bit tight on money, you know. He was stubborn enough to refuse our money, saying that he would be back on his feet quickly. He even continued to contribute to helping out with my brother's treatment, which is something I admired. So I could understand why he cannot help Cynthia at this point. He complained a few more times, and I decided to pay Cynthia a visit then. I'd gone over to explain Alan's current situation to Cynthia simply, but for some reason she did not understand a single word I said, which made me question what I told her. I interrupted her discussion with who I'm guessing is a neighbor, and by the looks of it, Cynthia had badmouthed me in front of her friend. I caught the woman asking if, quote, it was me, and why Cynthia still entertained people who disrespected her. The woman left a few minutes after my arrival, but I'm sure that we already have lasting impressions of ourselves. What Cynthia told me next shocked me to the core, and that's when I learned what really transpired between my husband and Cynthia. I remembered him being on edge when he returned from his visit, and I had initially believed that it's because Cynthia had frustrated him. To my surprise, not only had she done that, she made sure to embarrass him in front of that same neighbor. I got upset and yelled at Cynthia for humiliating my husband in such a manner, and we began to hurl insults at each other. My brother had come out and, because of the commotion, and I explained myself to him before asking him to talk to Cynthia again. To my surprise, he told me that he could not do that because I had come to the house to insult her and was only reacting in the way I was because Cynthia had done the exact thing that I'd done to her. He told me that he heard everything, and that made things worse because I wondered how he would come to the same ridiculous conclusion that Cynthia did. They even had me question my actions. When I attempted to explain myself, I was told to leave. So, on my way back home, I thought long and hard about everything I had said and done while in my brother's house, and nothing indicated that I had gone out of line. The entire incident bothered me so much that I almost made a mess out of dinner. I told Anthony everything and apologized on Cynthia's behalf, and he never would have faced such a problem if I had not complained in the first place. Both Cynthia and her neighbor had judged and questioned my husband's morality, even asking if he was spending money on other women, since he could not afford to give more money to Cynthia and her family. My pity and sadness have surpassed my anger, because I know that I'd have taken action if it weren't the case. Did I really do something wrong by going over to my brother's house just to explain Alan's situation? Or were my brother and sister-in-law in the wrong with their accusations? I don't know. Let me know, guys. Update number 2. At this point, I don't think knowing who was wrong matters anymore. I was sent a restraining order from Cynthia while I was at work some days ago. And I don't know about you, but that was one of the most humbling and mortifying experiences of my life. I had to call to ask because my anxiety was eating me alive. And when I learned it was because of my visit and a few other past incidents, I ended the call. And my mood was ruined for the rest of the day. I told my husband everything because it was eating me up inside. Everybody could notice it, and he was furious and almost went over to my brother's home, but I stopped him, not wanting any more drama. Well, it was bad enough that I'd given a restraining order, something I never thought that would happen to me in my life. I managed to calm him down, and I left my brother and his wife as they were. My sister had an ugly experience with Cynthia as well, but she wasn't given any court order or anything like that, unlike me. So I told her about my encounter with Cynthia because it was upsetting me a lot more than I wanted it to be, and I did not want to talk to Anthony because he was directly involved, and I wasn't sure he was over the whole encounter at the time. I didn't know that she would go to Cynthia's place and pick up a fight with her. My brother had ended up calling later on, asking why I kept sending people over to harass both him and Cynthia. I tried explaining that I did not ask Abigail to go over there, but it was a waste of time. Now I have a restraining order against me, and I'm still struggling to come to terms with it. I'd made a promise to myself to support Cynthia financially. But emotionally, I have no business with her or her family. One thing that made me care again was finding out that my nieces bullied my daughter. So I went to her school to get her, only for her to remain quiet all throughout the evening and even during the ride home. My daughter isn't exactly the noisy type, but there's a kind of silence that convinces you that something's wrong. And my hunch was right on. Correct. Imagine how irritated I got when I found out that my nieces would take my daughter's food and money from her and tease her in front of her classmates. Well, I finally understood why she was hell-bent on staying away from her cousins when they were over, and I was not going to sit back and be idle. This was a case of bullying, and my daughter was directly involved. The day after finding about my daughter being bullied, I went to her school and asked to speak to my nieces. It took a while, but I was eventually left alone with them in a room. I asked what they did to my daughter and why they did so, and they just told me that Nora had initially refused to share what I had given her with them. And I knew that was a lie from the very beginning. So I asked again, promising dire consequences if they lied to me again. One of the girls got scared, telling me that their mom had told them to, quote, deal with Nora in school, just to spite me. My other niece, who I think is a replica of her mom, told me that Nora got what she deserved, being the daughter of a stingy, cruel woman like me. I didn't say much to the girls after that, and I know now that they were just children following instructions given to them by their mom. I had finally found out that Cynthia was indirectly bullying my innocent daughter, and I'd be damned if I let some silly restraining order stop me from telling Cynthia my mind. Cynthia got multiple phone calls from me initially, and when she refused to take them, she got herself a visit. I could tell that I shocked her by my mere presence, and as I was easily one of the most obedient people I knew, she was injured, like my sister had told me, but it was minimal and was clearly healing. I asked why she had instructed her daughters to bully my kid, and she told me exactly what my rude and insolent niece had done. Apparently, my foolish sister-in-law really believed my daughter was to be held responsible for the actions of her parents, and felt absolutely no remorse for orchestrating the torture of a young girl. I gave her the slap that she should have gotten from me in the past before leaving the home. I stayed a night in prison because of it too, and after my husband managed to get the bail for me, my siblings came to visit. They were furious that I'd spent time in jail because of Cynthia, and when they learned the reason why I had even visited her in the first place, they told me that Cynthia did not deserve the, quote, little that we were doing for her. I tried to reason with them because while my sister-in-law was a horrible person, no doubt, she still had daughters to take care of along with my sick brother. My sister could not care less about my opinions, and she managed to convince my brother to feel the same way that she did. I had to take it up with my husband, and instead of hearing that I've done a good job to try to convince them to discard their plans, my husband had agreed with my sibling logic. Well, he argued that Cynthia would never appreciate what was given to her, then reminded me that she and my brother were adults who ought to be able to care for their family. Anthony also reminded me that my brother would support his silly wife, and that I was wasting my time trying to stay on their good side. You know what? It got me thinking, and I'm starting to see things from my husband's point of view. I didn't particularly enjoy giving my money to Cynthia, especially after she began to be ungrateful, but she was still a human being with people to take care of. Alan had told me that he would not be contributing anymore, and my sister, who had taken up my niece's extracurriculars, told me that she had to take some time to think about it. We had all agreed on a meeting this coming weekend, and I hope the outcome will be something that favors us all. Update number 3. Remember when I was hoping that the outcome was going to be good? Well, not anymore. My brother and Cynthia are going to regret the way they treated us. This wasn't even a difficult decision to come to, and it was more or less because of my husband, or I'd have thought those people still needed our help because of the children and their unemployment. Anthony had gone to visit. I was able to stop my siblings, but not him apparently. He had recorded the entire conversation that he had with them, and for my sake, he had purposely asked my brother and Cynthia provoking questions so that I would see that helping them was a waste of my time. From the little I managed to hear before breaking down into tears, my brother himself thought that I was responsible for turning my siblings against him and his wife. And Cynthia was full of insults as usual, but after listening to her, it was crystal clear to me that she would never like me. It was a very sad conclusion to come to, and I could not stop crying myself. Afterward, I berated myself for shedding these tears, fully in on the plan to cut them off financially. Initially, we all agreed to stop sending the agreed amount of money that we usually send for my brother's hospital bills. The deadline, if I can call it that, was close, and after the meeting we had, nobody had sent Cynthia a single dollar. I saw a few text messages from her asking about the money, before the date that we were to send everything, and I knew then that she would have done the same to my siblings. Alan told me that he's also gotten a message from Cynthia, and when the deadline had come and gone without a cent entering Cynthia's bank account, she had made sure to create some unnecessary drama by coming to our home. This time my brother joined her, which did not really surprise me. So Cynthia starts asking all these questions, like why we decide to seize the money flow that belonged to her and her family. I'm not sure if it was her choice of words or the fact that she could not have phrased it to sound better, and it irritated me enough to pick a fight with her. There are people that I never would have thought existed, and my sister-in-law has to be the worst of them. Anthony tried separating us, but I made sure to at least scratch her before we got separated. My husband held Cynthia, and I remained still, waiting in case the strike happened. And that was when my brother began to berate me and my husband. He called the both of us selfish and began to shout so much that it was no surprise that his blood pressure shot up. He fell to the ground during his outburst, and when we got to the hospital, we were just told that he needs some time to rest, because he was very stressed out. Of course, there was the matter of the bill, but because of the agreement my siblings and I came to, I refused to pay anything to help my brother's hospital fees. Cynthia begged us to help her out, but she was wasting her time and she knew it. The following day, Abigail and Alan told me that Cynthia had called them to help out with the bills. They had both refused, and I knew that they would. I won't lie by saying I was completely comfortable with the idea of ignoring my brother's family when they were very tight on funds, but at this point it was what they deserved, until I was convinced that they've actually changed. Now, if I decide to foot their bills, it would become a part of the numerous and unappreciated things I did for Cynthia and my brother. What happened after my siblings' refusal to help out is a bit lengthy. Well, Cynthia decides to change tactics. Because begging no longer obviously was working, she had literally arranged for people to attack me. But unfortunately, I was absent, and Anthony took the brunt of everything. He was not hurt a lot because he fought the people off. They had taken a few things before Anthony found them, and it took time to figure out Cynthia was behind it all. In fact, it was a pure coincidence, and we never would have caught her if not for, well, Abigail had gone over to Cynthia's place because of one of my nieces. And from there, she saw one of the figurines that went missing on the day that the people had broken into my house. So I immediately reported it to the police. And after interrogating Cynthia, I discovered that she was indeed the culprit. I was hell-bent on sending her to prison. But after discussing it with both my husband and siblings, I decided that it was not the best thing to do, given my brother's state and the fact that she still had children to take care of. Instead of pressing charges, we decided to make Cynthia sign a document that rendered her unable to ask for a loan. I didn't even know I could do that, but Alan spoke to his lawyer, and it became feasible. Cynthia would stay out of jail, and in return, she would never ask for anything from me or any family members again. It was a fair trade to me, and this time she could not breach the agreement because it would mean possible jail time or a huge fine, at least for her. I should feel bad about it, but I really don't. Final updates. My brother's out at the hospital. It will take some time to forgive him after what he's done. With it being him who got hurt in the end, he came to see me as soon as he could. Unlike the last time, he did not look so good. He told me that Cynthia did not know that he was at my house. I apologized for not helping with the bills and gave my reason for doing so. In fact, I told him everything I could tell him, down to the part where my husband got attacked by people. I also told him that I threatened Cynthia with a restraining order, just like she did with me. She did send people to attack my family after all, and then coupled with harassment cases in the past, the court did not hesitate to give me what I wanted. To my surprise, he listened without saying much. Now that I think about it, Cynthia must have been responsible for his irrational behavior. And before he left, my brother, I could swear I saw regret in my brother's eyes. I can't be so sure, though, besides it's too late now. Nora had told me that her cousins had changed schools and she seemed a bit happy about it, which is really sad to think about. They had been caught bullying another student and had gotten suspended before the incident with my sister-in-law and brother. I'm guessing my nieces were withdrawn from their school because their parents could not afford it. I almost felt bad for the girls, but my pity evaporated when I remembered that they were menaces to the students. Yes, they were only doing their mother's bidding, but they deserved punishment. Alan and I met up 2 weeks after my daughter's announcement. He told me that Cynthia tried getting a job as a data clerk at his company. He mentioned that she was offered a cleaning position, but she declined it, and I didn't know what to feel. I know that my brother's family is struggling financially, but I won't bother myself with their problems anymore. The way they treated me and my siblings was unfair, and now they'll suffer the consequences of their actions.
So, some of the comments were upset that OP and the siblings decided to cut off, the sister-in-law and OP's brother. I want to know if you guys think that it was wrong to cut them off, so to speak, knowing that they're not doing very well financially. But at the same time, you have to remember how they were acting the whole story and the reasons it led up to OP just cutting them out. But I do want to hear from you guys. Maybe you've been in a similar situation and you can try to kind of give some advice about what OP could have done, should have done, or still can do. Just drop it down below in the comment section, guys. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate these sort of stories every day, so if you guys want to be a part of these daily stories, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button. You can check out some of my favorite videos down below in my playlist. And also, guys, I just want you to have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.